Yeah,
So
and so the Connie Booth stuff until PlayStation. I'm not saying it didn't happen, and as a matter of
Well,
fact,
she is
here's
gone,
my
so
thought on it.
she's gone. PlayStation said it. Yeah.
and
Okay,
people on that
PlayStation did
team
say
are
that.
on Visual Arts.
So PlayStation did confirm that she is absolutely gone.
That's why it's so funny because PlayStation said it like the next day or the day after, and it's like, and when you're done with your point, I'm just gonna say right now, I disagree with what you're saying, Turkey.
You did before I get done with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm saying it, and then I'll say why.
Okay, so you know what I'm gonna say. Okay,
No,
cool.
I don't know what you're
Let's.
gonna say, but I disagree with what you've said about it
Oh,
smelling
with what I've
fishy.
already said.
Yeah, it doesn't smell fishy at all to me.
Okay, so here, so I will you know this? You've been on the show long enough. I like to approach things sometimes from both sides. Okay.
Hmm.
So on one hand, it smells fishy. On the other one, I can very easily say Angie Smet probably came in April, and they did the 6 month transition: April, May, June, July, August, September. Oh shit, 6 months is October. Huh. Okay. So you do a 6 month transition for somebody who's retiring out.
That could
That's
possibly
the
be too.
that's the exact same thing that Jim Ryan is doing right now. She's been with the company for 34 gosh
Yeah,
dang
she's got to be
years.
almost 60.
34. 34. Angie Smet, she's up and coming. She's really popular. People love her fucking games. She has a great way, like a great mind for these games. She brought us Horizon. Hell yes. And so, like, yes. And so Josh Ayers just said in the chat, Jim just did it more public. And that's what I think exactly happened. Um, so he wrote, sometimes people don't like working for other folks. And so when somebody leaves, when a high up figure leaves, you might have some sort of, I don't want to call it an allegiance, but some sort of, you know what, I don't want to learn another manager. I've enjoyed this company, but I don't want to work for anybody else other than her, and then they leave. So that could be what happened. And the way the timeline lines up, yeah. And is Angie Smet probably going to be good at this job? Yeah, I think she really will. Uh, but that to me is a non-story. The layoffs, it smells funny until you start looking at the other side. All these other studios are expanding. They won't need as much help from these support studios. So laying off portions of the support studios that probably helped. That's the other thing. Angie may want a new team. That's the other thing. Like, the changing of the guard is not always a bad thing. And so, anyways, you have Angie Smet. She's done all this stuff. She's really good at what she's done. And like I said, I think she's going to do a wonderful job in that role. But then you get into the layoffs. Sorry, I had to kind of reset my thought. You get into the layoffs, and they're laying off like 10 to 20 people each time they've done it. There hasn't been mass layoffs, from what I understand. But they've expanded their other studios by like 150 people. So you don't need as much development help from your helper studios as you did before.
You always need that though, so that's a pretty lame excuse because 1,000
But
people outside from outside companies that you're hiring anyways do a lot of that stuff too. There's 1,500 people that
no.
work. Yes, yes. There's like 1,500 people that worked on frickin' Horizon and God of War and all that shit. There ain't that many people at Santa Monica. There's always work, especially if you're support studio. Always help. Someone always needs help with something. Always.
Yes.
You can't have
And
enough.
I
They can
and
hire 10,000 support people. It's not enough.
and that, so
Think about it. There's
Nelson,
like 250 people or so that worked on from Gorilla, and 1,500 people are accredited. That's 1,200 people that don't work there.
yes. I'm not saying that those 10 people don't make a big difference. But if you have 1,500 people who worked on a game and 1,200 of them were not a part of the main studio, losing 10 of those 1,200, is less than 1%, my guy. Like,
Okay, but
less than
why do they need to
1%.
lay him off though? If they need him, I don't know.
Well, it could
I
have been
also,
numerous things. Could have been location. It could have been the type of developers there are. I mean, the
production.
production. I mean, yeah, the quantities. Maybe they were overloaded on certain departments versus others. It could be restructuring. It could be a whole lot of things. But what I do know for sure is that PlayStation, they're known and they do a specific quality in their games. And look, when I first saw this news, I'm sorry, Thrifty, you weren't done.
So I was gonna let you talk because you were saying this kind of the same thing I was gonna say. It's it's not. I think it's all related to production because we have seen Herman Holst go into a building and say, "Nope, this ain't it. Y'all are done." Because PlayStation don't give a shit. It's about the games. And so what have we said this year? What is PlayStation's one big eyesore this year in 2023? It's the fact that we only got one major first party release outside of VR. I know Josh is going to jump in here and go, don't forget VR. I am not forgetting VR. But their bread and butter is their Spider-Man 2s, their Horizons, their Ghost of Tsushima, their God of War, their Last of Us. Like, those are their heavy hitters. And so what you're looking at is cadence of games. We have so many games that were supposed to come out this year or even at the last quarter of this year that had to be moved.
They weren't
If
first
you're
party
sup-
though. There wasn't anything supposed to come out in first party.
That's also the problem. Like, if you're not being productive, because what was the big thing you said to me earlier today? That this studio mainly helps second and third party developers
I said first,
get their
second,
games
third.
out. First, second, and third, right?
Yeah.
And guys, we don't know if PlayStation is making a move. The fiscal year is gonna end here soon. Like we just do not know this information. And to back it all up, what I was saying before is, look, even in my company, we constantly have now in my direct. We're part of a much bigger corporate, but in my branch, I mean, we're talking 300 people between production, sales, managers, the whole thing, and even we keep a rotation of about 5 to 10 employees that are in constant rotation of layoffs, hiring, fire, like promotions. Like that's always happening every company. Now, the thing that surprised me the most out
You're
of this
echoing now.
news is that this hasn't happened sooner. This hasn't happened 2020, 2021, 2022.
I think it was a production thing. I think eventually it's going to come out that these studios that have been shut down this year, the layoffs that have happened this year, it's very much like, hey, we shut these down because and we laid off these people because our goal is to support our first party studios so they can deliver great games, right? It goes back to the Jim Ryan uh, leaked interviews that I went over in a Thoughts with Thrifty. It goes back to what the goals are of PlayStation to strengthen our developers so they can release great games. Like, that's their goal. And so if anybody in the company or the studios aren't doing that or whatnot, then it's that they don't get to stay. And on one hand, it sucks that people lost their job. I'm never going to be supportive of that. My wife just went through losing her job, and that freaking sucks. But from the business side of it, because we have to detach ourselves from the business side of it, it makes total sense. The way they acquire studios is the same way because somebody could look at this and go, well, why are they laying off people after they just acquired a studio? Well, this other studio is going to help them strengthen their others and release great games. Like that's their goal. That are going to justify these purchases or these not these purchases, these new hires is by outsourcing some stuff. Platinum Games, when Final Fantasy 16 released, about 2 weeks before, we found out that like so many studios had worked on different parts of the game, and Platinum Studios had one of the Icon cinematics, and one of the Icon fights was done by Platinum Games, which was pretty cool because Platinum and Square Enix have a great relationship, and it was awesome. But it wasn't it so studios like that do that crap all the time. Well, they'll work on a side project or they'll do something like that. And when Zubitech, was it Zuby? It was either Zuby or TCMF, but he released the screenshot of everything that all the studios are working on. And like it was surprising to me how many studios had like a game that wasn't really theirs. Like it was a PlayStation game, but it wasn't theirs. And I found that interesting because it shows that PlayStation's network of studios is set up in such a way that each studio can help out each other, right? We've talked about that many times. Like Xbox has the Coalition, but they have to go in and help people like navigate their hardware and shit. PlayStation just has, hey, we are PlayStation. Like, you have access to everybody. You want to talk to Insomniac about how the hell they got ray tracing reflections inside of ray traced reflections? Yeah, go talk to them. You can talk to some of our lead designers over there. Oh, really? Yeah, y'all are part of PlayStation Studios now. Like, they share all of their resources. So
Yeah,
now,
JP's
if
right, man. He says that they were laying off folks in the hundreds from Insomniac Games, Gorilla. Like for example, they just did Spider-Man. So if they were start to lay off
yeah,
people
yeah,
from
yeah.
Insomniac, then yes, it's like, hey, ring the horn, ring the alarm. But this is,
We are healthy.
No, it's a big nothing burger, but here's the deal. If we don't
This
discuss
is
it on
what you
here,
want,
if we don't talk about it on here,
isn't it?
then the Xbox gets to set the narrative.
Stop,
we
Harry!
know
We
that
can
they're
help
not
you!
logical. We know that they're emotional. We know that they're like little kids saying the world. Like we listen to them because they're our kids, but we know that you
What
can't
is the
take them
rest of it?
serious. That's what Xbox are. Not all of them, of course. There's some guys that have been calling out, the Forzas and saying, hey, what happened here and stuff like that. But for the most part, especially in the social media world, a lot of these guys are literally just defending Xbox
Please don't.
because it's just their console. And it's a sad thing to do because yes, PlayStation are preferred console, and we're very quick to call out because look, I just spent the last like 15 minutes going over all the PlayStation that I don't like. Especially with a digital
What's he gonna
shit.
do with that
Like,
thing?
come on. I also said how, or you said, Christy, how
I think we're
the
about to
biggest
find out.
thing that we can hold
need
against
to know.
PlayStation is how
Harry's gone.
Spider-Man is the only game
Host and
this
symbiote are
year,
perfectly fused.
that's a first-party big
I'll find a way to
release.
save him.
Absolutely.
You can't.
Where the hell are all these other developers?
But you can still stop the symbiote. How?
Right. Somebody was saying in the
By
chat
killing the
earlier,
host.
Ryan was saying that Sucker Punch needs to go ahead and start talking because
Please.
people are forgetting about Ghost of Tsushima. One, I agree
Save
with the
my
first
boy.
part of that statement. Two, I completely disagree with the second because there's not a damn week that goes by almost that somebody doesn't bring up Ghost of Tsushima.
And they're gonna start.
Because-
They're gonna start soon. Next 6 months, we'll hear something about them. Because remember, Ghost of Tsushima was just 3 years ago, guys.
Yeah,
And
not to
I'll tell you
mention
what
they
I-
did DLC and they did the Legends add-on for
Yep.
free too. So
Yeah.
that,
Yes.
I mean, they
And,
didn't really.
The PS5 one, the. Well, you're right, Nelson. You did it.
It's been,
Can
yeah,
I
it
just
hasn't even been
say-
2 years. That DLC was not small either. It was
The
fucking
way
pretty
the
big.
studios work together, I wouldn't be surprised because that game was so well done visually and graphically. I would not be surprised if they wanted to wait to see how all the ray tracing technology that Insomniac was able to implement, see how all of it worked.
Which we know they do. They work with each other all
I know,
the time.
I know. So,
Oh, and
well,
I'm sorry, Timothy, and remember, or I'm sorry, you didn't see this, but you call me Wooly, dude. With this Wired interview from the director of Spider-Man 2, he talked about the engine, and he talked about why they're able to produce. Like, because last podcast we were talking about